It always begins so quietly, so subtly that you almost miss it. A small detail, a glance that lingers too long, a laugh that feels just a little too forced. The kind of thing you brush off because you want to believe everything is fine. That's what I did. I brushed it off again and again, until the truth finally stood in front of me and I could no longer pretend. He lied to my face, and in that moment, my entire world cracked. But let me take you back to where it all started, because betrayal never arrives suddenly. It sneaks in slowly, hidden behind soft smiles and sweet words. And Daniel, he was the master of disguise. When I first met him, he seemed like everything I had ever wanted. He was charming without effort, the kind of man who made people feel comfortable in his presence. His laughter was warm, his eyes attentive, and his words felt like music. He remembered small details, things most people forget within minutes, like how I always ordered my coffee with just a splash of milk, or how I preferred reading books late at night instead of watching television. He even remembered the story I told about my dog from childhood, something I shared casually once, and later he brought it up as if it had mattered to him. That kind of attention can make you feel seen in ways you didn't, even know you were missing. And I was already half in love before I even realized it. My friends warned me, of course. They said no one could be that perfect. They teased me, told me to keep my guard up, and said to me that men like him always came with shadows hidden behind the light. But I laughed, brushed off their concerns, and told myself I was lucky. Maybe they were just jealous. Maybe they didn't understand, because what I saw was someone who made me feel like the center of his world. The days with Daniel blurred into something magical. We'd drive at night, windows down, music low, as we spoke about everything and nothing. He'd ask about my dreams, about the life I wanted to build, and he painted futures with his words that felt so possible, when he was the one describing them. A little house near the water, trips across the world, nights spent cooking together in a kitchen filled with laughter. He made me believe in forever. And for a while I let myself believe. But perfection never lasts, does it? Sometimes it isn't even real at all. Sometimes it's only a mask someone wears until the cracks begin to show. The first crack came one weekend when he disappeared. No calls, no texts, just silence. I stared at my phone for hours, waiting for his name to light up the screen, waiting for a single word to let me know he was okay. By the second night, I was sick with worry. I had imagined accidents, emergencies, every possible disaster, and then like nothing happened, he reappeared, smiling, apologizing, telling me there had been a sudden work emergency that demanded his full attention. And I believed him. I let out the breath I had been holding, hugged him tight, and scolded myself for doubting. Because why wouldn't I believe him? He looked me in the eye, and he said it with such calm certainty. But that was the beginning. After that, the cracks came more often. He started staying late at work, coming home hours later than he promised. When his phone rang, he'd step outside to answer, lowering his voice until it became a distant murmur I couldn't make out. When I asked questions, he'd laugh it off. "You're overthinking," he'd say, pressing a kiss against my forehead. Or worse, his eyes would turn soft, almost wounded as he asked, "Don't you trust me?" And of course I said I did, because I wanted to, because love makes you blind, and trust makes you deaf to the warning bells screaming inside your head. But one night, the truth almost slipped through his fingers. He had left his phone on the table while he went to the kitchen. I wasn't looking for anything. I swear I wasn't, but when the screen lit up, I couldn't help but notice the message. A name I didn't recognize, a message followed by a heart emoji. My chest tightened. My hands felt cold. When he came back, I asked, pointing to the phone, "Who's that?" He didn't even hesitate. He smiled, easy and smooth, and said, "Just work, nothing important." And in that moment, something deep inside me cracked. Because his eyes didn't falter, his voice didn't shake. He lied so effortlessly, so convincingly that for a moment, I almost believed him again. Almost. But the doubt had planted itself inside me, and it grew like a thorned vine, twisting tighter each day. I wanted to trust him. I wanted to silence the voice in my head that kept whispering, but I couldn't. Not anymore. I started noticing everything. The perfume that lingered faintly on his jacket, a scent I didn't wear. The receipts I found tucked in his car were for restaurants I had never been to. The unexplained absences, the sudden meetings, the weekends he said he had to work. Every little thing added up until the picture became impossible to ignore. And then came the night everything shattered. He told me once again that he had to stay late at work. I nodded, smiled, kissed him goodbye, and watched him leave. But inside I had already made a decision. That night I was going to follow him. My hands trembled as I got into my car, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out my thoughts. I kept my distance as I trailed him through the streets, headlights dimmed, eyes locked on his taillights like they were the only thing anchoring me to reality. But he didn't drive to the office. He drove across town, down quieter streets, until he stopped in front of a small house tucked away at the edge of the city. My breath caught as I watched him step out of the car, walk up the steps, and knock. The door opened, and there she was, a woman. She smiled at him as if he were the center of her universe. And then she kissed him. Not a friendly kiss, not a brief hello. No, it was the kind of kiss that leaves no room for doubt. The kind of kiss that tells you you're not the only one. My chest tightened so painfully I thought I might pass out. Tears burned my eyes, blurred my vision, but I couldn't look away. I couldn't stop watching as everything I thought I knew crumbled in front of me. Every word he had ever spoken to me, every promise, every late-night conversation, replayed in my head like cruel echoes. He had looked me in the eye, over and over again, and lied without flinching. He had sworn love, sworn loyalty, sworn forever. And yet there he was, living another life with someone else. I don't know how long I sat there frozen, tears streaming down my face as I gripped the steering wheel. But eventually I drove away. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely keep control of the car. My world had shattered, but beneath the rubble, something else began to take shape. Something cold, something sharp. Betrayal can destroy you, or it can fuel you. And that night I chose fuel. Sleep didn't come that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the images playing over and over in my mind like some cruel film reel I couldn't turn off. The way he held her, the way she smiled at him, the way he kissed her as if I had never even existed. My pillow was soaked with silent tears. But beneath the grief, something darker was growing. By morning, my heartbreak had sharpened into resolve. I wasn't going to confront him yet. Not until I knew everything. If he could lie so easily to my face, then he could spin his way out of any half-truth. I threw at him. No, if I wanted the truth, if I wanted justice, I needed evidence. Proof that he couldn't wriggle away from. So I started to watch him. Not obviously, not in ways he could notice, but carefully, quietly, like a shadow. When he said he was working late, I would drive past his office just to see if his car was there. More often than not, it wasn't. When he left his phone unattended, I paid closer attention. I never went through it directly. That would raise suspicion, but I noticed patterns. Numbers that are called late at night. Messages he deleted almost immediately. And then there were the lies he told without flinching. Small ones at first. About what he had for lunch. About running into an old friend. About errands that didn't quite add up. And then bigger ones. Whole evenings unaccounted for. Weekends when he claimed to be out of town for work, yet I knew he hadn't gone far. It was astonishing, really, how skilled he was. He could look me dead in the eye and swear something was true, while the evidence was written all over his actions. If I hadn't seen it myself, I might still have believed him. That realization chilled me more than anything, because how many times before had he lied? And I had swallowed it whole, never knowing. I started keeping a journal. Every date, every excuse, every suspicious absence. I wrote it all down, every receipt I found, every unfamiliar perfume I smelled, every excuse that didn't line up. Page after page, my collection of truths grew until it was undeniable. But even the evidence wasn't enough for me. I needed to understand. Who was she? How long had this been going on? What did she have that I didn't? So I followed him again. It became a pattern. Whenever he claimed to be busy, I was there, hidden in the background, watching. He always went to the same house, always to her. Sometimes they cooked dinner together. Sometimes they sat on the porch, laughing like they had no secrets. Other times she leaned into him and he kissed her the way he used to kiss me. Her name, I would later learn, was Emily, and she had no idea I existed. That was the cruelest part. He wasn't just betraying me. He was betraying her too, living a double life, stringing us both along, making promises he had no intention of keeping. To me, he was the devoted partner. To her, he was the charming lover. And neither of us knew the truth. Until I decided it was time she did. The first time I approached her, my hands shook so badly I almost turned back. I waited outside the grocery store I had seen her frequent, my pulse racing with every second that passed. When she finally appeared, pushing a cart, humming softly to herself, she looked so ordinary, so kind. It made me hesitate, but I couldn't stop. Not now. "Emily?" I asked, my voice trembling. She turned, startled, her eyes cautious. "Yes?" I swallowed hard, every word catching in my throat. But then I thought of all the nights I spent waiting for him. All the lies, all the heartbreak, and I forced myself to speak. "You don't know me," I said. "But I think we need to talk. About Daniel." At first she looked confused. Then, slowly, I saw the dawning realization in her eyes. The suspicion, the fear. We sat in her car, and for the next hour I told her everything. About me, about him. About the nights he spent with her when he claimed to be with me. At first she denied it, shaking her head, tears welling in her eyes as if she wanted to push it all away. But when I showed her the journal, the notes, the receipts, she couldn't deny it anymore. Her hands shook as she pressed them against her face. "Oh my God," she whispered. I had no idea. Neither of us did. The betrayal cut us both sharp and deep. But in that shared wound, something else was born. A bond, fragile but fierce, between two women who had been lied to by the same man. We could have turned against each other. We could have let jealousy and anger consume us. But instead, we made a pact. We would expose him, not with screaming confrontations or messy fights. No, that's what he would expect. That's how he would wriggle free, play the victim, twist the story until he came out clean. We wanted him cornered, trapped, forced to face the truth with no escape. So we planned, carefully, methodically. Each of us is gathering our own evidence. Every text he sent, every call he made, every lie he told, we documented it all. Piece by piece, we built a case so airtight that not even his silver tongue could spin it away. The more we uncovered, the worse it became. There were other women, too. Casual flings, he thought, we'd never know about. Small lies layered upon bigger ones, until his entire life was nothing but a carefully constructed facade. And through it all, he kept looking me in the eye, kissing me goodnight, whispering that he loved me. He had no idea that his world was about to collapse. The night we chose for the confrontation was deliberate. His birthday, the one day he would never expect betrayal to turn back on him. He thought he was coming to a surprise dinner planned by me. What he didn't know was that Emily would be there too. And the truth, our truth, would finally be laid bare. I spent the day preparing as if nothing were wrong. I decorated the house, set the table, and even baked his favorite cake. I smiled when he called, acted sweet when he texted, played the role of the perfect partner one last time, and inside I burned with anticipation. When he walked through the door that evening, his face lit up with delight. "Wow," he said, pulling me into his arms. "You did all this for me?" "Yes," I whispered. "All for you." And then Emily stepped out from the kitchen. I'll never forget the look on his face, the way his smile froze, the way his eyes darted between us, calculating, searching for a way out. "Daniel," I said softly, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "We need to talk." What followed was a silence, so heavy it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. He tried, of course. He tried to deny, to charm, to twist. He said Emily was a friend, a colleague, that I was overreacting, that it wasn't what it looked like. But then Emily pulled out her phone, showing him the messages he had sent her. I added my journal, my receipts, and my photos. Piece by piece, we laid out the puzzle until there was no picture left for him to hide behind. His face changed. From denial to anger, from anger to fear, and finally, to something cold. "You planned this," he said quietly, his voice dripping with venom. "You both planned this." "Yes," I answered, meeting his gaze without flinching. "We did because you lied to us. To both of us. And tonight you don't get to lie anymore." He stormed out after that, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. But it didn't matter. The mask was gone. The truth was out. And for the first time in months, I felt free. But freedom doesn't come without cost. Even after he left, the echoes of his lies lingered. I had built my life around him, trusted him with my heart, my future, my dreams. And now all of it lay in ruins. Yet as I looked at Emily, her eyes red from crying but her expression fierce, I knew we weren't victims anymore. We were survivors. And what he had done would not define us. It would define him. The house was too quiet after he left. The echo of the door slamming still rattled in my chest. But beyond that, it was silence. Emily sat at the table, her head in her hands, while the candles I had lit earlier flickered like mocking reminders of the celebration. That would never be. The cake sat untouched. The decorations hung heavy, suddenly absurd in their cheerfulness. I stared at them for a long moment before walking over and blowing the candles out. The smoke curled upward and I whispered to myself, "That's it. That chapter is done." But it wasn't done. Not really. Because men like Daniel don't just walk away quietly. They don't accept defeat. They twist, they plot, they try to regain control. And I knew him well enough to know that this wasn't the last I'd hear from him. Sure enough, the messages started pouring in that same night. Long paragraphs full of apologies, explanations, and manipulations dressed up as confessions. He begged me to meet him. He said I misunderstood. He said he loved me. He said Emily meant nothing. He said I meant everything. The contradictions piled one on top of another, until his words were nothing but noise. And then came the threats. "If you ruin my reputation, you'll regret it. You'll never find someone like me again. You don't know what you're doing." That was Daniel. When love failed, when charm cracked, when lies were exposed, he turned to fear. He thought fear would keep me quiet. But fear no longer held me. Instead, something else took root. A fire, a hunger for justice. Not just for me, but for Emily, and for anyone else he had hurt with his deception. We didn't speak much that night after he left. Emily and I sat together, sharing the kind of silence that doesn't need words. Two strangers connected by pain, but also by resolve. She looked at me finally, her eyes red but steady. "He can't just walk away," she whispered. "No," I said. "He won't." And in that moment, our pact deepened. This wasn't just about exposing him once. This was about making sure he never got the chance to do this again. The next few weeks became a blur of planning. Daniel tried reaching out to both of us separately, but we had already cut the strings he used to control us. Instead, we focused on gathering everything, every lie, every receipt, every message. We weren't reckless. We weren't impulsive. We were careful, methodical, precise. I learned more about Emily, too. She was nothing like what I had imagined when I first saw her with him. She was kind, thoughtful, even a little shy. She told me how Daniel had swept into her life, showering her with affection, making her feel seen in ways no one else had. The same things he had done to me. The same script repeated word for word. It made me sick to realize how calculated he was, how practiced, but it also gave me strength, because I wasn't alone anymore. Together, Emily and I created a timeline of his lies. We connected dates, phone calls, and trips. We uncovered overlaps where he had told each of us different stories. We pieced together proof that his entire life was a web of deceit. And then we started reaching out. One by one, we found others. Women he had charmed, used, and discarded. Some were brief flings. Others had believed, like us, that they were the only ones. The pain in their voices echoed our own. Some wanted nothing to do with it, too hurt to reopen old wounds. But others wanted justice. And slowly his empire of lies began to crumble. We weren't reckless about how we revealed it. That would have given him power. He could have spun it as revenge, as bitterness. No, we were smarter. We waited. We gathered everything. And then one evening, Emily and I sat down and created a file. Neatly organized, undeniable, irrefutable. A record of his betrayal. Every thread of deceit woven together in one devastating tapestry. And we didn't send it to him. We sent it to everyone else. His friends, his colleagues, his family. Because betrayal thrives in secrecy, but it dies in the light. I'll never forget the night his sister called me, her voice trembling. "Is it true? All of this?" "Yes," I said softly. "Every word." The fallout was swift and brutal, not for us, but for him. The calls stopped. The threats stopped. Because Daniel was too busy trying to salvage the wreckage of his carefully constructed image. The man who once walked with such arrogance suddenly found doors closing, friendships dissolving, trust evaporating. But even then I knew it wasn't enough, because revenge isn't just about watching someone fall, it's about reclaiming what they took from you. And he had taken more than trust. He had taken pieces of my soul, my confidence, my sense of worth. If I truly wanted closure, I needed to rise from the ashes stronger than before. So I rebuilt myself. I poured my energy into my career. into friendships I had neglected, into passions I had set aside. I started painting again, something I hadn't touched in years. Emily began writing, pouring her pain into words that others could read and recognize themselves in. Together we lifted each other, two broken souls forging something new. And Daniel? He tried, of course. Tried to play the victim, tried to claim he was misunderstood, tried to rewrite the story in his favor. But every attempt fell flat, because the truth had already spread too far. His lies no longer hold weight. His mask no longer fits. Months later, I saw him once more. Not by choice, it was at a mutual friend's gathering. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. His once confident stride was replaced by a nervous shuffle. His eyes darted around the room as if searching for allies, but none came. When his gaze finally met mine, there was no anger, no venom, only defeat. And in that moment, I realized something. Revenge hadn't been about destroying him. It had been about freeing myself. He lied to my face. He broke my trust. He tried to shatter me, but in the end I was still standing. And he was just a shadow of who he once pretended to be. Emily and I left the party together, laughter spilling between us. Real laughter. Not the hollow kind that used to fill my evenings with Daniel. And as we stepped into the night, I felt lighter than I had in years. Because betrayal may break you. It may cut deep, leave scars that never fully fade. But it also gives you a choice. To stay broken, or to rise. I chose to rise, and that was my true revenge. When betrayal is first exposed, the ripples spread quietly at first. People whisper, some don't believe, some refuse to take sides. But lies, when dragged into the light, are like cracks in glass. They only grow. They spread until the whole structure shatters. For Daniel, the shattering came quickly. At first, he tried to act like nothing had happened. He showed up at work with the same smile, the same confident walk, pretending that the whispers in the hallways didn't exist. He thought he could talk his way out of it, just as he had always done. But this wasn't one woman's suspicion or another's accusation. This was evidence, documents, dates, receipts, screenshots. A trail so detailed and undeniable that even his most loyal friends couldn't look him in the eye. The first fracture was with his family. His sister, who had once adored him, who used to call him her role model, cut him off completely. She told me later how angry she felt. Not just because of the betrayal itself, but because of the lies he had spun around everyone. He hadn't just deceived me or Emily, he had deceived them too, creating an illusion of the perfect brother, the responsible son. His parents, though quieter, weren't blind. They tried to reach out to me once, their voices full of shame and apology, but I couldn't give them the comfort they sought. This wasn't about soothing their guilt. This was about the man they had raised, the choices he had made. And for the first time in his life, they stopped defending him. Then came his friends. For years, Daniel had been the charismatic one, the man everyone invited, the center of every group. But charisma only lasts when people trust you. And once the lies were out, every smile, every story, every memory was tainted. Friends started to distance themselves, some quietly fading away, others publicly condemning him. One by one, his circle shrank until he was left standing alone. And still, he clung to his old tricks. I heard from Emily that he had sent messages to some of the women he had wronged, trying to twist the story. He claimed we were exaggerating, that we had fabricated things, that he was the real victim of bitter exes seeking revenge. But the problem with lies is that once you've been exposed, no one listens anymore. His words fell flat. The most devastating blow, though, came at work. Daniel prided himself on his career. His position wasn't just a job, it was his identity. The image he wore like a crown. He was the dependable one, the trustworthy one, the man people could count on. But when the whispers reached his office, when colleagues started comparing stories and realizing his personal life was just as fabricated as some of his claims at work, the foundation cracked. I wasn't there, but I can imagine the meeting. The tense air, the questions asked in sharp voices, the way his confidence faltered under pressure. Because lies don't stop at home. They spill everywhere. And when someone lives a double life long enough, the patterns seep into everything. Deadlines missed. Promises broken. Excuses that didn't add up. Within weeks, he wasn't walking into the office anymore. He was gone. Quietly, discreetly, the company had removed him. A man once respected was now a liability. Someone they couldn't trust to represent them. The fall was swift, but it wasn't clean. Daniel lashed out in every direction. Angry messages, late-night calls, voicemails filled with venom. He accused me, accused Emily, accused anyone but himself. He said we had ruined his life, that we had destroyed everything he worked for. But deep down, I think he knew. We hadn't destroyed him. He had destroyed himself. We had only held up the mirror. And what stared back at him was uglier than he ever wanted to admit. I'll never forget the day I saw him on the street again. It was months after the confrontation, after the truth had spread so far that it no longer needed my voice to carry it. He was standing outside a cafe, his shoulders slumped, his clothes wrinkled in a way I had never seen before. The man who once prided himself on appearance now looked like a stranger. For a brief moment, our eyes met. There was no arrogance there anymore, no charm, no fire, only emptiness. A man stripped of the lies that once gave him power. And I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no anger, no pity, just nothing. Because by then, I had learned something powerful. Revenge doesn't always come with fire and fury. Sometimes it's quieter. It's watching someone unravel under the weight of their own lies, while you stand tall, free from the chains they tried to wrap around you. Emily and I talked about it often. How strange it was to see him fall. How once his presence consumed our thoughts, but now he barely registers. We were moving on. He was stuck, and yet part of me wondered, did he ever regret it? Did he ever lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling the way I once did, replaying the choices that led him here? Or did he bury it all, pretending even to himself that none of it was his fault? I'll never know. What I do know is that truth has a way of catching up. You can outrun it for a while. You can cover it with smiles and charm, but eventually it finds you. And when it does, it strips everything away. That was Daniel's downfall. Not my revenge. Not Emily's. Not the voices of the women he betrayed. The truth itself. It's funny looking back now. I used to think revenge would feel like victory, like fireworks exploding in the night. But it didn't. It felt quieter, subtler. It felt like peace. Because in the end, revenge wasn't about breaking him. It was about reclaiming me. And I had done that. The world saw him for what he truly was. And for the first time in years, I saw myself again, not as someone's partner, not as someone's fool, but as a woman who survived, who rebuilt, who rose. That was the true ending of his story, and the beginning of mine. Time passes in strange ways after a storm. At first, the days felt heavy, dragging under the weight of what had happened. I woke up every morning expecting the ache to hit me like a wave. And for a while it did. But slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice, the tide began to recede. It wasn't immediate. Healing never is. There were mornings when I still reached for my phone, half expecting a message from him. There were nights when I replayed old memories, not because I missed him, but because I was trying to understand how I could have been so blind. But the difference was that those thoughts no longer consumed me. They came, they hurt, and then they left, leaving space for something new. I found myself doing things I hadn't done in years. Simple things. Cooking meals just for myself, not for anyone else. Reading books without checking the clock, without waiting for a text. Walking in the park and noticing the colors of the leaves, the way the light filtered through them. I was relearning life without him, and with every step I felt lighter. Emily was a big part of that. What started as a strange, painful bond had grown into a real friendship. We laughed about things now, about the way he used to repeat the same lines to both of us, about how predictable his romantic gestures really were when you saw the pattern. It was laughter laced with sadness, but it was healing laughter all the same. One evening, we sat on her porch, sipping tea, watching the sun dip below the horizon. She looked at me, her face soft in the golden light, and said, "Do you ever think we should thank him?" I raised an eyebrow. Thank him? For what? For this, she said, gesturing between us. For the strength we found. For the lessons we learned. For proving to ourselves that we can rise, even when everything tries to break us. I thought about it for a moment. The idea of thanking the man who had lied to me, betrayed me, hurt me so deeply, it felt strange. But she wasn't wrong. I didn't thank him out loud, of course. He didn't deserve my gratitude. But privately, quietly, I did acknowledge something. He had shown me who I was, not because of his love, but because of his betrayal. I discovered a version of myself I might never have known otherwise, stronger, sharper, more resilient than I ever believed I could be. Revenge had given me closure, yes, but healing gave me freedom. Months passed, then a year. By then, Daniel was little more than a shadow in my mind. I heard bits and pieces about him through others, how he moved to another city, how he was trying to start over, but those stories didn't stir anything in me anymore. They were just that. Stories about someone I used to know, someone who no longer had power over me. The power was mine now. It's strange, though, how life gives you mirrors when you least expect them. One afternoon, I was walking downtown when I noticed a young woman sitting on a bench, crying quietly into her hands. I hesitated for a moment, then sat beside her. She looked up at me, startled, and I asked softly, "Are you okay?" And in her tear-streaked face, I saw myself. Not literally, of course, but the version of me who had once felt broken, betrayed, lost. She told me her story, different details, different names, but the same wound. A partner who lied, a trust shattered, a heart left bleeding. I listened. That's all. I didn't give advice. I didn't try to fix it. I just listened. Because sometimes that's the only thing we need to know we're not alone. When she thanked me later, I smiled. "You're stronger than you think," I told her. "You don't see it now, but you will. One day you'll look back and realize this didn't break you. It built you." And as I walked away, I realized something. The real revenge wasn't what Emily and I did to Daniel. It wasn't exposing him or watching his world crumble. The real revenge was living well, thriving, refusing to let his lies define us. Because that's the cruelest truth about betrayal. It can only destroy you if you let it. I won't lie to you and say I never think about him anymore. Sometimes I do. Sometimes a smell, a song, or a place brings back a memory, and for a moment I feel that old sting. But it doesn't control me. It doesn't own me. It's just a scar now, a reminder of what I survived. And maybe that's what scars are for, not to remind us of the pain, but to remind us of the strength it took to heal. If you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever had someone look you in the eyes and lie without hesitation, you know the pain I'm talking about. It feels like the ground has disappeared, like the world has turned against you. But I promise you this, it won't last forever. One day the tears will dry. One day the anger will fade. One day you'll wake up and realize the betrayal that once defined you is now just a chapter in your story, and you'll be stronger for it. That's what happened to me. That's what happened to Emily. And if it happened for us, it can happen for you too. So here's the lesson, the truth I carry with me now. Trust can be broken. Love can be twisted. People can betray you in ways you never imagined. But you are stronger than all of it. Stronger than the lies, stronger than the heartbreak, stronger than the person who tried to break you. Because in the end, they don't get the final word. You do. And my final word is this. He lied to my face, yes. He betrayed me, yes. But I uncovered the truth, I exposed him, and I rose above him. And that will always be my story. Not the betrayal, not the heartbreak, but the rising. The real ending wasn't his downfall. The real ending was my beginning. They say every story has an ending. But I've come to realize that endings are never really the end. They're just doorways leading us somewhere new. When I look back now, when I trace the path of everything that happened, I don't just see the betrayal anymore. I see the person I became because of it, and that's the part I hold on to. For so long, I thought my life had been shattered beyond repair, that the lies he told, the trust he broke, the secret I uncovered, it had all destroyed me. But the truth is, it didn't destroy me. It revealed me. I had to walk through fire, yes. I had to feel the sting of humiliation, the ache of betrayal, the rage of injustice. But walking through, that fire burned away the version of me that was willing to shrink for someone else's comfort. It burned away my fear of being alone. It burned away the illusions I had clung to. And what remained was me, raw, honest, unshaken by lies. Sometimes late at night, I replay those moments in my mind. The night I confronted him. The way his face changed when he realized I knew the truth. The silence that followed when he no longer had power over me. And every time I remember, I don't feel anger anymore. I feel clarity. Because betrayal, as painful as it is, has a strange gift hidden inside it. It shows you what's real. It strips away the masks people wear. It forces you to stop believing in pretty lies and start living in hard truths. And yes, truths hurt, but they also heal. I didn't just lose someone who lied to my face. I found myself again. Emily and I still talk about it sometimes. Not with bitterness, but with perspective. We've turned our shared wound into shared wisdom. She told me once we didn't just expose him. We exposed ourselves to our own strength, and I think she's right. The greatest revenge isn't in making someone else fall. It's rising so high that their betrayal can't even touch you anymore. And that's the message I want to leave you with. If you've ever been lied to, betrayed, or broken, remember this. You are not the lie they told. You are not the trust they shattered. You are not the weakness they mistook you for. You are the truth that rises from the ashes. One day you'll look back on this moment. The tears, the anger, the confusion, and you'll see it differently. You'll see it not as the ending of your story, but as the beginning of a stronger one. And maybe, just maybe, you'll even be grateful. Not for the person who hurt you, but for the strength you found because of them. Because the secret I uncovered didn't just leave him exposed. It left me exposed too. Not to weakness, but to my own resilience. He lied to my face, yes, but in the end I found the greatest truth of all. That betrayal may wound you, but it can never define you. Only you can do that. And that is where my story really begins. Subscribe to our channel for more videos. Thanks.